Can they hear me? Yes, they can hear me. Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal Daily. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JacineoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal and on Instagram at JacineoGram. Welcome to another episode. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes and subscribing to the channel if you are new. On today's show, we're going to be going through all things Arsenal news and transfer news. And doing a little bit of a Villa preview. It's a jam-packed week because we play Villa tomorrow, and then on Sunday we play Manchester United, and in between there, the transfer window closes. So we have quite a bit to talk about. So make sure that you guys are tuned in. I got a lot to say. Okay, I got a lot to say today. All right. So let's see who's in here already. Rydog says Danilo would be so perfect. I figured we'd be taking him in January, even before the recent injuries. iGamer says I made it to a live. Nice. I'm glad you're here. Denzel says honestly, I'd be so pissed if Arsenal don't sign at least one more player. Talib says we need to replace Partey Simple and buy Zaha. Amira says, hey, Jess and Chad, honestly, forget the players. It sounds like we need a new medical team. Interesting point. Tony Smith says, have we got anyone yet? The answer is no, Tony, we have not. Joshua says, remember the Artur Murata Isak links happened so late, and all it took was Tim Lewis to say spending was never intended for January. I feel the same now. Tony says, Sky Sports say a lot of things, though. Yeah, there's Sky Sports are talking about Gakpo. We have tons to talk about. Jay Mbene says, yes, Jess, let's go. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Again, you guys, make sure you're smashing the likes and subscribing if you're new. There's almost 100 of you guys in here already, which is absolutely insane. Make sure you are tuned in. So again, what we're going to be going through is Arsenal news and transfer news, and then working our way down to the Villa preview because we have to get that done. This is probably the first game that we're going to be playing where we can actually have a conversation around rotation, and we have some issues. We have some injuries that are going to keep us from playing our best 11. So we have to talk about it, but we're going to start with transfer rumors. This is not like a hairstylist iGamer. This is me. And like, let me just tell you that, like, obviously, like this bun looks really cute, but it was hard to do and it's very tight. And I can't wait to take it out, take it out. As soon as I press end broadcast, I am taking this out because my head is so like, it's a lot. It is a lot. And yeah, then we get to watch some games later on tonight. So should be interesting. Let's get into it. So, just starting off. Oh, I don't know what happened to my initial slide. I'm just gonna go to it. This guy here got injured, and I'm not sure how he got injured against Fulham because he was just wall passing back to Saliba. But apparently, Elneny has sustained some sort of a serious injury. They're saying it's a hamstring, a strain or something like that. And so, not only did Ornstein come out, yesterday and say that Pedro Neto was not likely, then he comes out today amongst other journalists and tells us that the guy that never gets injured is injured. So he said Mohamed Elneny suffered significant injury versus Fulham. Arsenal awaiting full extent, but 30-year-old expected to miss considerable spell. Partey also nursing relatively minor muscle injury, so AFC may look to recruit in midfield. David Ornstein also said Arsenal had previously been focused on signing a wide forward, with Pedro Neto the top target. You guys already forgot how to say it. Mudryk. I already forgot how to say it. Sorry. Is also among the candidates, and it is also financial. It is also thought financial considerations would make it difficult to buy both a winger and a midfielder in the coming days. Kaya says, understood it's a hamstring injury for Elneny, being assessed in the next 24 hours to confirm severity. AFC want to confirm before transfer decisions. Zinchenko is in contention to play versus Villa after a fitness test, while Partey's injury is minor and a couple of weeks. I just have to say that, like, if a Partey injury is considered minor, but it's keeping him out a couple of weeks, that just shows how injured he's been. I know Orbinho came out with a stat today saying Thomas Partey has only been fit for 58% of the games that he has been able to, like, since he's been an Arsenal player. That is a catastrophic injury record. Thomas Partey will be missing Aston Villa at home, Manchester United away, FC Zurich away, Everton at home, and PSV Eindhoven at home. So that's a lot of games that he's going to be missing, albeit some of those games might have been games that he wouldn't be playing. But the most notable game there for me is Manchester United, and going into our first big clash and not having Thomas Partey or Mohamed Elneny is making me upset. It is making me angry. And the reason for this is because we probably should already have a midfielder, not from this window, but last window. I tweeted that we bought Sambi and extended Xhaka last summer, and we bought Vieira and extended Elneny this summer. Arsenal have been doing they have been going out of their way to not address midfield with a prime age, some sort of experienced midfielder that can play 6 and or 8. And because of that, we have a bunch of kind of maybe options, but nothing really significant where we probably should. And it just feels like Arsenal are afraid to address such a obvious issue within the squad. We've been saying this entire window, that there's a huge gap behind Thomas Partey that is clearly going to bite us in the ass if we don't figure it out. And I don't buy all of this stuff about, oh, well, Arsenal, they can't do this because of FFP. Oh, they can't do this because, we're not in Champions League. Or what team stockpiles midfielders? Other teams that are below us in the Premier League have more than one good midfielder that can play in their pivot. So I'm not buying it. And so we're always a Xhaka and a Thomas Partey injury away from catastrophe. And it's just gotten worse because Mohamed Elneny, who doesn't even do that great of a job deputizing for Thomas Partey, has now gotten a significant injury while passing back to Saliba for 90 minutes against Fulham. So I am not a happy girl. I am not happy. Now, does that mean that the season is over? No. Does it mean all is lost? No. But it does mean that Arsenal are going to be forced to deal with a situation that they've been trying their hardest not to address it for some reason. Mohamed Elneny, 30. Thomas Partey, 30. Granit Xhaka next month, 30. 3 of our main midfielders are old and need replacing. And so to not bring anybody in just feels like we're setting ourselves up for failure, especially knowing Thomas Partey's injury record. So that's my rant, but they need to address it. And that's what we're going to talk about in this first hour of the show, because we've been linked with several midfielders over the last couple of hours. But my frustration is, why did it take an injury to Elneny for us to try to address something? It's 2 days left in the window. 2 days left. And it's unlikely that we'll be able to bring somebody in under duress. When you're in a position where people know that you're desperate, all of a sudden the price goes up. And as David Ornstein has said multiple times, Arsenal are in some sort of financial situation where they're not going to be able to address both positions. And even just addressing winger would have been stressful for Arsenal. I don't know why we're in this financial situation. I have a feeling that it's because we've brought in a lot of players because the Cronkies have given us money to do so, or some sort of loan, but we have not recouped any fees for these players, and so we're not really bringing in any money. And so it's annoying because you could have written this. Like, this is such an obvious thing to happen. And so, yeah, waking up to that news is just like, it was already bad enough that Zinchenko and Thomas Partey were injured, which are two midfield options. Then you have Elneny. You know, if that's not a sign that you need to address midfield properly, I don't know what is. So, going back to like the first slide, Leandro Paredes from PSG has been linked to Arsenal. Now, I thought he was gone and on his way to Juventus, but apparently, they're having an issue in terms of Paredes and Juventus have an agreement, but Juventus and PSG don't have an agreement. And from reports, PSG would rather send him to Arsenal than send him to Juventus. So take from that what you will. But this is coming from Marco Guidi. Don't know him, but he's a journalist at Gazzetta Italy. And he said there's been a major insertion of Arsenal on Paredes. PSG would prefer to send the player to London. He wants to keep his word to Juventus, a negotiation full of twists, certain conditions affecting the final decision. All that really means is that there's no agreement between PSG and Juventus, but there's one between Paredes and Juventus. So, PSG could be in a good position to use our desperation at the last minute to push Juventus into doing what they want. Small noises that Juventus midfielder Nicolo Fagioli, who was due to move back to Sermonsi after a successful loan spell there last season, may end up staying with the old lady, and it could be relevant to Paredes. That's also coming from Marco Guidi. And the last thing that I read about this is that, the situation with Paredes at the moment is that Juventus are still in the pole position to bring him in, but Arsenal are definitely there, and a deal could be struck with PSG. Now, this is very significant. One, Paredes, great player. Definitely think that he's somebody that we probably should have been looking at from day dot. It should not have taken this long, but he wants to go to Juventus, and it makes sense why he would, because obviously, like, they have Champions League and they already have some sort of agreement. But Arsenal are coming in at the last minute and want to do some sort of loan deal, and that's what PSG would be more interested in. There may be, a feeling that maybe Arsenal will be able to take on more of his wages. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but PSG would be in their it would be in their best interest to use our interest in order to push Juventus to do what they want. And we know Juventus, what they want to do is take your players for free. They don't actually want to pay for your players. They want to get them on 2-year loans and then buy them for next to nothing when their contract is about to run out, or get them for free. So I don't see this materializing, but this is a player that I think would fit in with our club, but at the same time, like, we don't have Champions League, and this feels like an opportunity more for PSG to get what they want rather than us getting what we want. But it should not have taken this amount of time for Arsenal to move on a midfielder. But like, we were looking at him, but also, there's been reports that the player has to fit the overall sporting project. And I'm not sure that Paredes naturally does. I think a younger player fits it a little bit more, somebody who's more experienced and more able to affect the first team in the Premier League than Sambi, but also would not be like opposed to being somebody that rotates with Thomas Partey. So Paredes, to me, doesn't necessarily fit that description, but he is a player that has a lot of quality that, if we could strike something with PSG, I wouldn't be like upset, but I don't see it happening. Craig says, according to various reports, Arsenal will be in advanced talks with Neto. I think that that's probably some in the nose saying that. I've seen so many in the nose trying to be on top of things and make up things. And until I see him with the shirt, I don't believe he's coming to Arsenal. John P says, I think Milan would sell Benacer great as a progressive 6. TJ says Ibrahim Sangari from PSG would be excellent. I've been saying that for a long time. O'Malley says Gaultier already said Paredes is going to Juve. Again, I've already said don't think that this is going to happen. It's more of an opportunity for Juventus to get what, or PSG to get what they want from Juventus, and them to work it out. But using Arsenal's late and desperate interest does help them. Joshua says, so maybe this year is Yuri Tielemans on deadline day. Surprised because media could have forced out some stuff on Yuri. Haven't heard anything about Yuri Tielemans. Have a very strong feeling that that one is not going down. And then M says Danilo or Tielemans and Mudryk in. So, yeah, like Paredes is probably not going to happen, but we'll move on to something maybe a little bit more realistic. So Danilo from Palmeiras, who we have been linked to before, has been linked to us again. If you guys remember, we were linked to him in January, and we probably should have gotten him in January. I know that they were playing in a tournament, so Palmeiras didn't want to sell. But guess what? Money talks. And if we were able to come up with a bid that they'd be interested in, they would have sold him because they know they can't keep a player. Like there's also been reports of him learning English, so he probably wants to come to the Premier League. Had we had put up a bid suitable, they probably would have sold him to us. They still don't want to sell him, and they want to wait. But again, money talks, but we're also desperate. So what is that price? But Danilo has been linked to Arsenal once again. He's a defensive midfielder that plays for Palmeiras. Arsenal have once again inquired with Palmeiras over Danilo. The Brazilian side is said to be asking around £21 million for the 21-year-old defensive midfielder. Now, if the reports are true that Arsenal only want to spend about 20 million on Yuri Tielemans, how about you shift that money over to this guy because he actually plays the position that we need. The issue with Yuri Tielemans is not that he's not a quality player and he doesn't improve us, is that he doesn't naturally slot into the Thomas Partey role. And because we have Vieira, because we have Zinchenko, Xhaka, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, we probably do have enough players that fit into that 8-10 position. But what we need is somebody that can play 8 or somebody that can play 6. And that's exactly what he does. Arsenal wanted Danilo in January. The only reason that it didn't go through was Palmeiras were playing in I think that's the Club World Cup, and didn't want to sell. They don't really want to sell this window, but they're not going to be able to keep hold of him for long. That's basically like a come hither type of like, we don't want to sell him, but we'll sell him for the right price. Go get him. If all it's going to take is 21 million pounds, shift that money that you're going to spend on Yuri Tielemans over to him because we need that player. And if all that stopped us from getting him was the Club World Cup, well, guess what? That's over. Move on. Like, we need to bring in somebody. We can't just be out here with no midfielders. So he's a player that's been linked. Again, everybody has a price, and if you can strike a deal, then you're in business. So he more fits the profile in terms of the overall sporting project. Like, he's younger, he's Brazilian. You know, he'd probably be okay not always starting every single game, but could probably affect the first team more than Sambi, especially in that position. So yeah, this is something that we need to go ahead and get done. And this is not Danilo from Juventus. This is Danilo, the young Danilo from Palmeiras. He's only 21 years old. There's so many Danilos. But this is not Danilo Pereira or the other Danilo that I think plays for Juventus. Yeah, he plays for Juventus. This is a different Danilo. He's only 21 years old. He's a different one. So this is a deal that I would like to see go through because he does fit all the parameters. It's just whether or not Arsenal pull their finger out, and stop acting like they have to get the exact perfect player and the exact perfect mold and all this kind of stuff. You are in an injury crisis. It only took 4 weeks for everything to kind of feel like it was on a knife's edge. Now, when we go through the potential lineup, it doesn't feel like that as such against Villa. Maybe not even against Manchester United. But as we move deeper into the season, we all know that we have a span where we just play the top teams. We're playing Man City, we're playing Tottenham, we're playing Liverpool. And during those games, you can't have Sambi sitting as your 6. It's not going to work. You can't have a midfield of Vieira and Odegaard and Xhaka and think you're going to survive. You have 2 days to fix a problem that you've known that you had for 2 years. So you need to get it done. But Danilo is something that I would be interested in seeing happen. Marwan says we have a problem. CM Fabio Vieira can play CM. Let's see. Karthik says we should try to explore a possibility of signing Gallagher, who would be fantastic. He's been atrocious for Chelsea, and I don't think he fits what we need. He's a busybody, and he looked good at Crystal Palace. But what you see is some of these players that look really good on mid-table teams struggle in the top 4 teams because it's a different level. And so for me, I don't want anything to do with Gallagher. He's a busybody. He's kind of like a Guendouzi of sorts, where he's not really super good at anything, but he just kind of runs around a lot and is very energetic. We need something more specific. We need a central defensive midfielder that can play ball and also win back the ball and do the interceptions and play in front of our back 3 or our back 4, maybe lone 6. And that's not Conor Gallagher. So there's no point in bringing him in. Abdul says it's hardly a crisis, but an extra midfielder would be welcome. The reason why for me it is a crisis is because we have went through 4 weeks of the season. We haven't even gotten to the hard part, and we're without a recognized number 6. And if the window was already closed, we don't have a midfield that anybody feels particularly comfortable with, because Sambi is, by the club, already been moved to a different position. So the club has already inadvertently, by their own actions, showed that they don't even trust him in that position. So you don't have somebody that can play the position the way that it needs to be played. And for a club that feels like they're going to be fighting for top 4, feels quite strange that we don't have a midfielder that can slot straight in to that position. We have an overabundance of players that can play 8-10, but we don't have enough players that can play number 6. And so for me, because a lot of our play goes through that player, not as much with Zinchenko there, but still, Thomas Partey is such a big part of our team. It is a crisis to me. And it seems like a crisis to the club, because it's only at this moment where they started to panic and look for a midfielder. So it is a crisis. And we'll see how big of one it is when we get to Old Trafford away from home and we see what Arteta does in terms of the squad. Because Zinchenko is not going to be ready tomorrow. Thomas Partey is not going to be ready tomorrow. And I'm not seeing a ready option. You can tell me Ben White till you're blue in the face, but it ain't Ben White. He's not going to play central defensive midfielder. And I have a huge fear of Sambi at Old Trafford playing in the 6 role, trying to maneuver with the ball like that. I just don't see it. So for me, it is a crisis, especially because we've been saying it for so long. We should have addressed it last summer, but we didn't, because of Xhaka and because we brought Sambi. Now this summer, we weren't even going to address it until now. It's a crisis. Saida says, Edu told us that this season we'd be looking to sign players that are ready for now. Fast forward and we're still signing players with potential. Fair point. Don't waste the tweet says White can't be the answer for CB plus right back plus CDM. And that's the thing, don't waste the tweet. I think that's such a good point, is that we have a lot of players that kind of solve problems but don't. White, he can play right back and center back, but do you actually think he can play midfield? We have Zinchenko, who's mostly a left back, but we kind of think he can play midfield. Can he do it? We have Vieira. He may be able to play midfield, but maybe he could play right wing. We have ESR. Maybe he could play wing, but maybe he can play 8. We don't have anybody in the team right now that we know for sure can play number 6 at a competent level. I love, versatility in players, but we almost have too much versatility and not enough players that can actually play the position. So I don't know, I don't know what you guys are seeing, but for me, like, it doesn't wash. Like, it's not washing for me. And Crispy Rice is saying, come on, Jess, every team would have that dilemma if they lost 2 CMs. Well, maybe we should have not re-signed Elneny, maybe thought a little bit longer about signing Vieira and bought somebody like a Bruno Guimaraes that could play in that position, and we wouldn't be having this issue. Just saying, but Gunnar Jake says Marquinhos can slot in at DM tomorrow. I mean, I'm hearing all these, like, maybe so-and-so, maybe so-and-so. against Villa, I guarantee we're going to see a midfield of Sambi, Xhaka, and Odegaard. You know, that's probably what we're going to see. And so we're not going to see DM Ben White. Like, we're not going to see that. And my thing about Sambi is that it's not that I don't think he's talented. I just think we want him as far away from the goal as possible because he is a pressing trigger. We've seen that. So let's not act like we didn't see it. Like, we definitely saw it, you know? What? Go away. Yeah. Crispy Rice says this panic is so 2016. No, it's so 2022, you know, because we've seen how this derailed our last two seasons. Like, people can always act like we're not in trouble, we're not in a, you know, we're not in a crisis, we're not this, we're not that. But this is how our season derailed. It's only happening a lot earlier. And it was so predictable. And I think that's what's annoying, is that it's so predictable that this has happened. And so we should have been already looking at a midfielder, and we should not be choosing between a winger and a midfielder. Ebby says penny pinching Arsenal, hence re-signing Elneny. C. Walder says we kind of need somebody ready to go immediately. Loan makes more sense to me. Then spend some money on someone the right age and profile without needing to throw them into the deep end. We've done that twice. Like, we've spent 50 million on Sambi and Vieira. Vieira is not playing yet, and we don't quite know what his position is. And Sambi is inexperienced and not quite ready. That's 50 million pounds that we spent on two players that can't help us now. And so that's where my frustration really comes, because the priority should have been to make sure that Thomas Partey's injuries don't derail our season. And I'm not saying that we're like all is lost. I'm just saying we don't have a ready-made replacement at the moment. And that just feels like something that we should had. That should have been like the number one thing that we did after Jesus and Zinchenko. The very next player that probably should have came in was somebody that could step in for Thomas Partey, but it wasn't. We started focusing on a winger, and now for some reason we don't have enough money for a winger, and we damn sure don't have enough for a midfielder as well. And that's where my frustration lies. Jovi says Sambi might be better with one of our solid back four. Zinchenko could help out for left back. That's the only thing that I'm kind of hoping, is that with more security and better players around him, that he does better. But I still want him further away from the goal. Like, I don't want him deepest in midfield, because I've just seen it enough against Nottingham Forest, against Crystal Palace, against Liverpool, is when he gets pressed, he gets stressed out and rattled, and then they nick the ball off of him, or he does a bad pass, and then it's done, you know, and then we give up a goal. And so the further away Sambi is from our goal, I think the better. And so you have to push him forward, and you have to put Xhaka deepest, as far as I'm concerned. But maybe if you have better players around him and you let him kind of do the 8 role instead of the 6, that would be better. But against Villa, it shouldn't be a big problem. But I worry about the weekend. And I am worried about the weekend because it's our first big clash. And we can't say it's a free hit because we don't have our best 11 this time. It's not going to wash. And so we just need to deal with the situation finally and stop putting it off, because it's going to be fine with Elneny and Thomas Partey and Xhaka. It was never going to be fine with those three. It was never going to be fine. Joshua says it's going to be peak when Europa gets introduced. We need more midfield bodies. It's as simple, or else Xhaka will get injured. So yeah. And when it rains, it pours. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying like Xhaka's injury will come next. And I don't want to say that, like, you know, because I don't want to put it out in the air. But what I will say is that, like, we tend to get injuries in clusters, and one player gets stressed out and has to play too many games, and then all of a sudden, poof, they're gone too. So it's just better to have more options than less. I get that Arsenal want to have their perfect targets and their perfect situations, but I'm not quite sure spending 50 million on Sambi and Vieira and not addressing the pivot that has been a struggle for the last 2 years was the right thing to do. But that's just, yeah, it's just annoying to me, especially because I've been a big advocate for addressing midfield for like 2 years now. And to see this happen again is just, it's just something that I'm annoyed. Like, it just annoys me so much. That's all I'm saying. So we'll move away from that just a second. There's 400 of you guys in here, which is amazing. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my outburst. Make sure you guys are smashing that like. It helps get the channel, and this is also like a therapy session for me, you guys. So I know that I'm supposed to be here and make you guys feel better, but like honestly, like I just can't be tasked with that right now. I just need to kind of like have my moment. So forgive me, but like yeah, today has been annoying. um how is it again? Is it Mudryk? Mudryk. So let's talk a little bit about him. There's been some more movement on this deal, if that's what you want to call it. So this is coming from Rudy Galletti, who is hit and miss. I will say I think he's hit and miss. I don't think he's as reliable as people make him out to seem. But Rudy Galletti says that ongoing talks between Arsenal and Shakhtar for Mudryk, the two clubs are working to reach an agreement for a figure around £20 million plus bonuses. There's optimism for the positive closure of the deal, evolving situation. Ornstein also kind of piggybacked that by saying that we are interested in him without any particular like details on the deal, but he at least said that, we were interested. And this is coming from Ben Jacobs. He says that Mudryk, appeals to Arsenal because they feel he can operate comfortably on both flanks despite being a left wing by trade. He's technically gifted and specializes in assists. Arsenal and Shakhtar started almost £10 million apart in valuation. Shakhtar ideally wants £25 million. The deal is very possible. Just get it done. Just get it done. It's amazing to me how this winger situation has kind of dragged on. Just get it done, because at this point it's like we're wasting time. We're going to be deadline day scramble, and it's just like, come on, just get it done. So yeah, this is the player that they want because we can't get Bredger Neto. Fair enough. Just get it done, because even if you don't get the midfielder, which I have serious doubts that we will bring in a midfielder, I have to say, at least the midfielder will save us from running Saka into the ground. And those were two things that needed to get done this window, is to make sure that we have suitable cover in midfield and make sure that Saka is not getting run into the ground. Of course, we're not going to address everything, but at the very least, we need to make sure that Saka has somebody that can take the burden off of him. Now, I don't know much about Mudryk. You guys have known like the last two streams that I've done. I'm not about to sit here and act like I'm the expert. I've never seen him play a full match. I've only seen clips of him, and he looks like a very talented young player. Whether or not he has enough end product to actually make a difference for Arsenal's first team this season is yet to be seen. And so that's really what it comes down to, because in these attacking positions, I feel like we already lack goals. I think we're spreading the goals around, which is great, but ideally you want Martinelli and Saka scoring 15 goals a season. And right now, I'm not sure. I mean, they could get there, but they may not, because they're still young players, 20, 21 years old. And so you bring in another 21-year-old, not quite a child, but somebody that's going to need to really build up that ability to have, the clinical edge in their game. I still think we're going to be short goals unless, you have Gabriel Magalhaes up there scoring goals for you. You might have to play him as a striker. So, if they really want this guy, just get it done. Like, it's amazing how much interest we have in players and how much talks we're having, but we're not putting in any bids. Just get it done. Stop messing around, but interesting player. We'll see what happens with it. Let's see. Mau says, we would be better off getting Danilo and Tielemans than one of them and a winger. I don't agree. What are you going to rely on Marquinhos and Nelson? Like, is that what you're going to do? I mean, the two of them are just, Nelson is an idea, and Marquinhos is a young player that we can't possibly rely upon if something were to happen to Saka. So we need somebody that has enough experience at least at the grown-up level to do something. So yeah, like, I think we need more than that, and that's why we'll probably get the winger, but maybe not get the midfielder. Lynn says, Jess, I know this has been a downer day, but we must try to stay as positive as possible. You know what it is though, Lynn, is like, we started off the window really well, and then we went through this period of not doing anything, and we always knew it was going to come down to the last days, and it was already kind of stressful enough as it was, just kind of like, okay, well, we're waiting, and then to get this injury to Elneny, which was unpredictable, but the Thomas Partey one was predictable. It just kind of put an extra level of like, oh shit on it. And so, of course, we're still top of the league. We're still playing well. Zinchenko and White, or not even, it's not even going to be Zinchenko because he's still injured, but Tierney and White on either side of Sambi might be okay for Villa. But this just shows how quickly it can go down. And we're only really potentially going to be okay because the window is still open. If the window had been closed and this had happened, I think the energy would be a lot different. And so the one thing that I will say about Sambi is can't be sitting there on all or nothing talking about not getting playing time and then come out there and get your opportunity and then not show it. So if he does get the opportunity, he has got to take it. He's got to take it and show that he's went up a level, because although I give Sambi a lot of I give him a lot of leeway because I still want to consider him a young player. 21 ain't that young. And so you need to be able to affect the game. But yeah, it's not the end of the world, but I'm frustrated because I just feel like we should have already fixed this. Terrence Tibbs says Uncle T says someone will surprise us versus Villa. Nan M says, I'm done with Zaha infatuation for the last 4 years. Billy says Sambi is 22. He's 22. Fair enough. He's not that young. Saida says, linked to, another young player. I'm not against signing them, but our squad is already young, and this was the window to sign players in their mid-20s. I just don't think Arsenal... I just have this feeling that it's like, instead of going for players in their prime age, because when you go for players in their prime age, you're basically saying that you're going for it now. And in order to attract somebody like Zinchenko and Jesus, you had to have agreed, or at least told them that we're going for something in the short term, because their careers are not, they're 25, so they're going to want to win things soon because they're in their prime. When you sign young players, you can, the runway can be a lot longer. And so you can always really rely upon, like, we want them all to come up at the same time in the next 2 to 3 years. And I just feel like it's a crutch that, we need to get rid of and sign players that can actually help us now. I see the teams around us, and that's what they're doing. They're signing players that can actually affect the game now. And we kind of spend a lot of time bringing in young players. And so I don't get it. I agree with you. I think like going after Rafinha or somebody like that was smart. And then we went straight back to like, okay, young players projects. We're even linked with João Pedro, and, good player for Watford, but definitely doesn't need to be playing for Arsenal. So we don't need more kids. We really don't. But the next 2 players that come in may be young players, because we have not been able to identify and recruit players that could actually affect the game now. And that annoys the crap out of me. Not Focal says injuries can happen to anyone. Injuries can happen to anyone, but you have to make sure that you're actually prepared for it. And it's not like this was unpredictable that Thomas Partey would get injured. It's not unpredictable that we get injuries in clusters, So, injuries can happen to anyone, but good teams are usually prepared. It shouldn't be 2 injuries and all of a sudden things are looking like what's going on. I think Liverpool had like 9 first team injuries. We have like 2, 3, and it's already looking crazy. So it's just about being prepared. It's just about being prepared. Craig says Arsenal strategy, in my opinion, was signing young players and selling them on for a big profit. The Dortmund model, Ajax. You can't do that at Arsenal. Arsenal is expected to win trophies, and you can't be Dortmund and win trophies. That's not how it works. But I hear what you're saying. But yeah, there's almost 400 of you guys in here. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll see what happens with Mudryk. I think we'll know sooner rather than later, because there's only like 5 minutes left in the transfer window. But I would, if we're going to get it done, just go ahead and get it done now. Like, don't wait. There's no reason to wait. Good player, young player. We'll see what happens. Melissa Reddy has just kind of come out and said that Arsenal are still looking at Cody Gakpo. This is not new, so I don't know if she's using old information and just recirculating it now. But Manchester United were obviously heavily linked to him before they bought Antony, and now it looks like they are cool with Antony and they're not really interested in Cody Gakpo anymore. He wants to move. There's a lot of clubs that are interested in him. Southampton, Leeds were also interested in him. Newcastle are circling. So he's going to get a move to the Premier League. It's just a matter of where he goes. Again, we've been linked with him before. I have my reservations around Cody Gakpo's readiness for Arsenal. I do feel like he's the type of player that may need a Leeds or a Southampton move and then move to a bigger club, but that's just me. They want about 25 million for him, so that should be right in our wheelhouse. If we don't have that, then why are we in the market? But he's different than the other players that we've looked at. He's not really a one-on-one specialist. He's not really particularly quick. He's more of an inside forward, a tall inside forward that scores goals. And so he could be beneficial to us and really useful. That way, if Saka is injured or something like that, you can play Martinelli off the right and Gakpo off of the left. He just doesn't really fit what we've been doing. So he's a different option, but he doesn't really bring the same continuity that a Pedro Neto would. But we have been interested in him. I have a feeling that he ends up at a Southampton or something like that. They've been the most recent team to actually put in a bid, and feels like this might be old information being recirculated by Melissa Reddy. But I know a lot of Arsenal fans would be interested in bringing in Cody Gakpo. They really like him. It's just one of those where it's if this is the player that you want, just get it done. We've been linked with him long enough. So we'll see what happens with Cody as well. iGamer says, we need signings. We can trust Edu and Arteta all we want, but the writing is on the wall. Another almost season if we don't address the issue. Lynn says, Jess, what frustrates me is that we get linked with lots of players and then nothing happens. For example, Arteta said he really wanted Neto, so they should have gone and got him. They're obsessed with the idea that it needs to be the right deal and the right player. And so this is not on Arteta as far as I'm concerned. I said this yesterday that he's basically made it very, very clear that we need to bring in players. He made it clear in January that we needed players. He didn't get them. And now he's making it clear again that we're short. And, he potentially is not going to get any players because it needs to be perfect deal, perfect player, perfect, perfect, perfect. And so he may be left and thrown under the bus. And so I can't look at Arteta this time. I really can't, because he's been saying that he needs these players. His team is light. We're light and attacker, and we're definitely like a midfielder. So yeah, I think it's not Arteta. It's not on Arteta right now. But they will be kind of throwing him under the bus because they're giving him, there's huge gaps in the squad that are so obvious. And it's just figure it out, bring somebody in. But maybe it's harder than it looks. It just feels like we're always short for some reason. And it's always because we're looking towards the future, but our future is contingent on what happens now. And so we need to focus on now a little bit as well. But yeah, Cody Gakpo, if you want him, go get him in. It'd be nice to have a little boost ahead of the Manchester United game. It'd be nice if we didn't wait until the nth hour. But hey, that's just me. Lloyd says, it makes me angry to see this happening to Arsenal again. More links, zero incoming, ready-made players that will help the team. No such as a perfect player, and it's on him. Jess, he needs to push. By all accounts, it looks like he is pushing. So I will not sit here and say that it's Arteta's fault when I actually seen him on Sky Sports, in pressers saying, team is short, we need to bring in players. For me, it's going to be all on Edu, 100%. They made him the face of this window early on when it looked like we were going to get Lisandro Martinez and Rafinha. We brought in Jesus and Vieira and all these players. Now he's still the face of this window. So if it doesn't go right, it's on him. Saida says, what's annoying is that we didn't even get to see how our board deals with transfers, as all or nothing didn't show anything. Edu is just isn't competent enough. I just don't know. There's still 2 more days left. but that's not a lot of time, especially if you're looking at a midfielder now and you weren't really looking at it before. So who knows what's going to happen. Tolu says, our fans need to calm down. We are playing so well, and one injury is making you lose our heads. You're all embarrassing. It's not one injury, it's three. Zinchenko, Thomas Partey, and Elneny are all injured, and Thomas Partey and Elneny are going to be out for weeks. So don't be disingenuous and tell people not to be freaking out when 2 seasons have been derailed by injuries. 2, the injury that's the most damning is the one that was the most predictable. And 3, it's not just one injury, it's 3, and we're going into a difficult period now. And there's 2 more days left in the window. So I don't blame any fan for losing their head because we had a really good chance of making top 4 last season. And it was very painful not to make it because we didn't have the players necessary to get us over the line. We had an opportunity to bring in Kulusevski. We didn't because whatever reason, and he went on and helped Spurs get top 4, and we were left with nothing. So to me, to tell fans that you're all embarrassing because of this and that and this and that, I don't really buy into that. I think I understand why fans are freaking out because we've seen this script before, you know? So for me, it's just not something that I'm going to be sitting there telling people to calm down about after what we've seen over the last 2 seasons. The Truth Sets Free says Vieira is an injured signing. How rude of a do not to disclose. Well, Vieira is back now, so he's not injured anymore. But we signed a lot of players. We signed players injured all the time. And I just don't know what is his actual position. There's very few players that can play 3 or 4 positions at a very high level, like Bernardo Silva. And what you don't want is for him to be an Ainsley Maitland-Niles. You know what I mean? So we'll see what he is, but he still needs time to adapt. And so he's just not somebody who's going to be able to help us in the next week or so. And that's what's really frustrating about it is because we need help now. Billy says, let me ask you, Jess, if we have Gabriel Jesus last season, even with all the injuries, do you think we get top 4? Yes. Yes. Because the difference between top 4 and not was either having somebody that could fill in for Thomas Partey or having somebody that could have finished a freaking chance against Burnley. That would have been it. If Lacazette could have finished that one chance against Burnley, we probably would have made top 4. So we needed a signing, whether it was a midfield signing or a striker signing. But having the midfield be decimated and then having no striker did not help. We just needed a solution. And also, signings boost the squad. They give you a little bit of a jolt and be like, oh, okay, it awakens the squad. And you saw what happened with Spurs. They brightened up, we dimmed away. And so it could have just been a striker, it could have been a winger, somebody that would have scored 2-3 more goals. It was fine margins, but we decided not to do anything. And because of the future, we don't want to disrupt the future. Now we're in the future and we're still not making the decisions, and that's what's frustrating. They could still get it done, but I'm just going by what like David Ornstein is saying, which is it's very unlikely that we will bring in a midfielder and a winger because a winger was already going to be a very difficult deal to do, even if it was not Neto. Charles Watts has said that it's unlikely that we bring in anyone. You know, like, I get where people are like, we're top of the league, we're this and that, but we're going into a really difficult period without, a number 6. Crispy Rice says, I'm not saying don't sign anybody, but our subs will need a run sooner or later. I feel comfortable with Tommy and Tierney because they played in the Premier League and we know that they're good players. I feel comfortable with ESR and Nketiah, but the subs or the rotational options that we have for midfield, which are Sambi and Vieira, one we've never seen play and one we have seen play, and he's been very far away from being ready. So, we have to see them play, but I don't know. Ionle says, I don't believe Arsenal. If it's a money issue, Ziyech, Tielemans is less than 50 million. I mean, the idea that we just need to be like waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for the perfect opportunity just feels stupid to me. Like, it just does. Let's see. Alonso says, I mean, I hate to blame the club when they lose both the starting six and the backup six at the same time. Less poor planning, more bad luck. Craig says, Arsenal journalists have kept quiet on club's movement, etc. Ringy, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate it. Make sure you smash the likes and get in the chat box and let us know what you were thinking. Yo-Yo says the only thing in Arsenal's favor is how poor Villa have been and how fragile Manure are. The only thing is that I just hope that our mentality is good enough where we're not missing 2 or 3 players and then all of a sudden we crumble. Because again, you can make an assumption that we'll be fine. But last season, 1 injury was fine, 2 injuries, maybe 3 or 4 injuries, we started to look like we couldn't cope. And so we don't want to hand a dead team like Aston Villa an opportunity to get any sort of points, especially going into the weekend against a team that maybe, you know, boosted by the fact that their team is making signings, and they've won 2 games on the bounce. So Aston Villa is a must-win because of these are the points that we have to get, and so the team needs to be strong. They need to be mentally resilient and really put to rest a lot of the anxiety amongst the fan base in terms of not having the perfect 11 and being able to see out games. We're at the Emirates. We're playing against. I mean, we let a dead Everton team beat us because things weren't perfect and we were rattled. And so the mindset needs to be different. And so I'm looking for big games from Gabriel Jesus, big game from Saka, maybe big game from Odegaard, and big game from Xhaka, because who knows who's going to be in that midfield. True Sets Free, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Neil says the minute we extended Elneny's contract, I knew we wasn't going to fix our midfield. The club has been taking the cheap option for years. Keep doing the same and hoping for different results is mad. Yeah, we need to have a big performances. These people are going to have to carry us because we're not the type of team that has so much depth where we don't see the levels go down. We saw that if Zinchenko's not going to play tomorrow, so it's going to be Tierney again. And so you're not going to get the midfield help from Zinchenko that you would, for a Sambi. So midfield is going to be an interesting scenario. True Sets Free says, yes, I am She Knows Football. My fragile ego couldn't take being called a woman anymore. I did it as a compliment to Jess, but it just caused confusion. No worries. I understand. Thank you so much for your super chat. And yeah, so that's the Elneny situation. So let's go ahead and get into the Villa preview because yeah, we need to get these 3 points. There's 413 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes. And let's get into how are we going to make sure that we get 3 points against Aston Villa. That would be 5 wins in a row. And that's really difficult to do in the Premier League. It's, I think we did it like one time last season. And the big teams do 5 wins in a row. And that's how you make sure, okay, then you go to Old Trafford and you try to win it, but you just try not to lose as well because you have the 3 points in the bag. So this is what Gerard has said about their injuries. He said Cameron Archer is a doubt. He's got a little bit of a hip issue. I have no idea who that person is. He came out of training yesterday and felt a little bit of discomfort. I don't think it's a big issue. I think it's days. We'll check on him today. Tyrone Mings did a partial session yesterday after his high temperature, and not feeling too good. We are hoping he'll do a full session today and will be available for us. Phil's issue, which is Coutinho at the weekend, was down to fatigue and cramp. He should be available, and we've still got a full session to go before, so hopefully we get through that. So basically what he's saying is that all his players are probably going to be available. And this is Gerard on Facing Arsenal. He said, we're giving our full focus and attention to Arsenal. Arsenal were in the situation themselves 12 months ago when they didn't start the season very well. They started the season very well, and they've got a top manager and top players. They've had an opportunity to build a really nice, exciting team there. We'll focus on trying to get the right result. They've started with a 100% record, but for me, that's a fantastic opportunity and a big challenge for me that my players will try to ruin that. Yeah. Aston Villa have been terrible. They've been catastrophic, and there's already rumors of Gerrard being on the way out and then potentially bringing in Pochettino. So we've hit the sweet spot of they're in disarray, they're playing like shit, but they haven't quite gotten their new manager yet. So we should be beating them at home, and we should be beating them pretty comfortably. They're not a good team. They never have been. And I expect us to beat them regardless of our injuries, because we have to. And so we can't be weak. We can't be weak. We just can't. We have to get through it, regardless of the situation. These are our 3 points to take. They shouldn't even have a chance at it. Now, what Arteta said going into this game is that, I watched the Premier League teams and how physical they are. Villa, every game here is a battle for everybody, and we don't expect anything different. Villa are a top team. They have a big squad, top quality players, and a good manager, and we expect a difficult game again here on Wednesday. We'll watch this game, Fulham, and start to analyze them. Obviously, since we played each other, they haven't changed that much. We'll play towards the games and prepare as well as possible. But they're a really physical team with a lot of presence who are really good at using the box, and it will be tough. Saturday, also, we saw the boss forced into making changes to his lineup for the first time this campaign, with Alexander Zinchenko and Thomas Partey struggling with knee and thigh issues respectively. And given the quick turnaround between games, Arteta doesn't expect either to be involved against Villa. When asked if the pair could recover in time, he said, "I don't think so. We still have to have another scan, especially on Thomas Partey, to see the length. But I don't think they will be available. It's a similar area to what kept Thomas out last season, but hopefully not as bad." So, we're pretty much in the same situation that we were in before, where Thomas Partey is injured and we need these 3 points, ahead of big fixtures where it's going to get even harder. Zinchenko won't be available, so who plays instead of him? We've been doing really well, and I would imagine that it'll be the exact kind of same lineup and setup, but you just maybe plug Sambi in. And it's going to be a really interesting scenario, because we'll see how much Arteta and the club trust Sambi, because if they don't play him, they need to loan him. That's my take. If they don't play him in this game, then they need to loan him out, because there's not going to be a situation where he'll be useful to us if he can't step in when Elneny is not there, especially against Aston Villa. So we'll see whether or not they trust Sambi. I don't actually see a scenario where they wouldn't trust Sambi, because who else is there? Can't start Vieira. You've never played him before. There's no Zinchenko. So you have no options. You just kind of have to play Tierney as the left back and then slot Sambi in. But we're going to need a big day from our forwards. That's what we're really going to need. Our ball progression and things like that were not bad against Fulham. We were getting the ball into the box. We had a lot of box touches. We just weren't clinical in those positions, in the box. And so if we can just make sure we have that clinical edge, we should be fine. But, Fulham were a team that were on a high. They were excited. They were confident, and we beat them. It wasn't comfortable, but they really didn't have many chances until we gave it to them. Villa is a little bit different because they have better quality players, but the spirit is low. So we just need to make sure that spirit stays low. We need these points. Ringy says, "What do you do a midfield of Xhaka, Odegaard, and ESR?" We'll talk about that in just a second. Yo-Yo says, "Sambi didn't start at home versus a promoted team." Jeff says, "No, Jess, he will be needed at points in the season." No, if he doesn't play, he's not trusted. And so at that point, you might need to just bring in somebody else and send Sambi on a loan. Damon says, "We can use Sambi, but I prefer Xhaka at the base and Sambi more advanced. In preseason, Sambi was excellent there." Maybe I just need to see Sambi again, because my most prevalent memories of Sambi are Liverpool, Palace, and Nottingham Forest, where there was just a lot of trust that went in those games. And then when he played against Southampton and Brighton, it was just kind of like, okay, the guy's not ready. And so maybe I just need to update my hard drive on Sambi. And again, he's somebody that spoke out on All or Nothing about not getting playing time and feeling some type of way about it. So if you get your opportunity tomorrow, you need to show up, play like a player that can actually get us through games and not be somebody that, transmit anxiousness, because there's players in our team that when they play, the team is more anxious because they make more mistakes. And I'm sorry to say it, but Nuno and Sambi were those players last season. You could just tell that they just weren't as comfortable with those players in the team. They didn't want to pass to them. They didn't trust them. And so Sambi needs to earn that trust back. Maybe he's already earned it from his teammates, but as far as the fan base, I still think that the jury is out on him. Some people want him sold, some people want him loaned, some people don't want to see him. So he just is somebody that needs, I think I would love to see a good performance so I can update my hard drive on him, because you guys know that I can think something about a player and then they can show up and be different and I will instantly change my opinion based on that. I would prefer to see Sambi play well and be able to update my hard drive and my information on him than him have a poor outing and it just further, be confirmation of what I already feel. Abdul says there are options to go with, but in the long run, it's not sustainable. Ben White can easily play DM and bring back Tomiyasu at right back, or play Xhaka at DM and play Sambi Vieira and current Xhaka role. I'm going to tell you guys right now that Ben White playing DM is galaxy brain. I feel like I keep seeing people say it, and I don't see him as a midfielder. I think he's a center back that can play right back in an inverted system the way that we're playing, but I don't see anything midfieldy about Ben White. I don't see the type of agility and speed and in the center of the pitch that you would need in order to play in that position. And so just because he's good on the ball and he's played there once or twice in his career, I don't think is a reason to take him out of a position that he's playing really well just so that we don't play Sambi. We need to see Sambi so there can be a definitive, and if they don't play him, then the decision has already been made. They don't trust him. But galaxy branding it and pulling Ben White out of a position because he's a defender and putting him in DM just feels so galaxy brain to me, and something that doesn't really hold water to me. Craig says, Sambi, I have a lot of faith in him. Some people do. And I want to have more faith in him than I do now. Zitch says some people forget that these players that have that good games last season, in the eyes of the fans, you are only as good as your last match. That's true. Sambi did have some good games. I thought one of the best games that he had was against Newcastle at home. He was really good in that game. I think it was him and Maitland-Niles. But again, that game was mixed in with so many bad performances. And because the last thing that I saw him do was not great, that's kind of how I view him. And that's probably wrong. But I'm only human after all. I'm only human, I'm only human, y'all. I'm only human. There's 350 of you guys still in here, so like the video and subscribe, and we're going to go ahead and build our lineup. Did you guys like my singing? I feel so much better now that we've spoken. You guys, I always tell you, this is my favorite part of the day because you guys get to tell me about myself, tell me I'm just talking shit and just, I'm wrong about this and I'm wrong about that. Favorite part of the day. Love arguing and agreeing with you guys. It's just amazing. And the fact that you guys are just here and we're spending time is absolutely amazing. So thank you guys for being here. Okay, we're here. We're gonna build our lineup now. Okay, I'll stop singing it. It's not that good. It's not that good. I know. Okay, where's the thing? Okay, there it is. You guys are like, oh my God, shut up. Okay. Okay, where's the thing? Okay, there it is. All right. Can you guys see? Can you guys see? See? Can you guys see? Perfect. All right. So we'll put in the easy positions. Rammers had a good game last time out against Fulham. We'll put in Gabriel. Boom. And then Saliba. I'm sure we won't see any changes. And the thing is because we already have injuries, now we can't do any fun resting of players. We have to just kind of keep certain people in positions. That's what happens when you get these injuries. Our midfield, we'll go ahead and Xhaka will be in here somewhere, but we'll put Odegaard in here. I'm only human. I don't see any changes here unless maybe Arteta, maybe do you guys think there may be an opportunity for for Nketiah or an opportunity for ESR. I guess my thing here now is that, okay, we've already weakened our squad. So do we want to weaken it more by rotating more? So you guys can let me know what you think if there's an opportunity for ESR or Nketiah to come in and maybe rest Jesus or Martinelli or Saka. You guys can let me know. But this is kind of where I feel like we are, and then we can have a bigger conversation about other things. Maybe you want to rest White, for the weekend and bring in Tomiyasu so that he can get some minutes. He seems like the first guy off of the bench. And we also know that this is going to be Tierney. Or do we continue on with Ben White? Some people are saying put him in midfield again. But how do you guys feel about right back, midfield? What do you guys think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? Maximius says, Jess is on a rant mode today. I feel like it will be Yuri and that Ukrainian kid by deadline day. I am in a rant mode today. I was mad. John P says, sit Saka down. We need him at full tilt for Man U. So who's coming in then? That's what I need to know. I need to know who's going to go in Saka's position. Amira says Martinelli right wing and Nketiah left wing, rest Saka. It's interesting. That's interesting. I thought Nketiah played very well against Fulham and was unlucky not to get a goal. And I feel like you give him another game, he could probably potentially get it. With Jesus, he didn't have the best game against Fulham, but he also was fouled every single time that he touched the ball. And our front three just in general wasn't on point. So maybe you play Jesus to try to see if he can get a goal and then maybe bring Nketiah in. Or maybe you do start Nketiah. I don't know. But he looked really, really sharp against Fulham, where Saka has not looked sharp at all. He did not look 100%. And I just feel like he's just not jaded, but I don't know. I don't want to project too much because I'm not in his head, but he doesn't look at 100%, right? Crispy Rice says, Jesus needs to start at 9 until we at least drop points at this point. So keep him in. Jovi says, ESR, Eddie, Jesus. Maximius, oh yeah, you already said that. Craig says, Fabio needs to get game time ahead of Saka, in my opinion. Jess, rest Saka. Maybe this is a game to rest Saka. Somebody in that front line maybe will get a little bit of a rest. And will it be ESR or Fabio Vieira? I have a hard time believing it'll be Fabio Vieira. He hasn't played anything. He hasn't played a game yet. But yeah, a lot of people are saying rest Saka. So maybe it will be like, you can put in Martinelli, who can play off of the left or play off of the right. And look at two Martinellis. And maybe you do play Nketiah. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't die. Like, Saka is not sharp. And I'm not sure that playing him into form is going to work. He might need to sit for a little while. Leopold says, can play 45 minutes at least. We need a few goals first. But are you going to get goals from Saka? Who's more likely to score, Nketiah or Saka? Right now, Nketiah looks more likely to score than Saka to me. Saida says, I don't think we'll see Vieira starting games until after the World Cup. I think we'll see him in like those initial cup phases, but I can't see him playing any matches until then. The Huraya says 2 Martinellis will be perfect. Billy says Smith Rowe so Tierney can overlap more. Okay, that's a really good point. Maybe ESR gets minutes. The one thing that I will say about Smith Rowe is he's on the outskirts and he needs to get himself back in. He's looking a little bit, he's being maybe underrated, but he also hasn't been fit, so maybe he needs an opportunity. But maybe you play Jesus until we won the game and then bring in Nketiah and start Smith Rowe and leave Saka out for the Manchester United game. And then, like you guys said, Tierney and ESR, because they tend to have a better continuity over there on that left-hand side than maybe Martinelli. Jovi says we are resting because of United. Yeah, we're resting because of United, and then we have a full schedule. We didn't have this before. We're playing 1 game a week. Soon we're going to be playing 2 games a week, playing in Europa League. So the premeditative like resting needs to start now. You don't wait until people are ran down to start actually resting them. And then you need to, I think there's just some players that need to keep their freshness up. Crispy Rice says, we're going to need Smith Rowe. He is vital. Yeah, I want to see a Smith Rowe that I recognize. Billy says Xhaka can cover that inverted role while White is on the other side. Guys, White is literally going to play in the back line. Let's see. So yeah, let's go with this front line. I kind of like this because you get Saka rest. You can still play Martinelli. Martinelli and Odegaard are okay. It's not as good, but it's okay. And then in midfield, I just feel like it's so, I mean, it just depends on who's going to play the deeper role. But I would prefer it to be Xhaka than Sambi. I want Sambi away from the goal, not receiving the ball from the center backs, being pressed because, and that might sound backwards because it's like, well, then why do you want Xhaka there? But Xhaka is less of a liability closer to the goal than Sambi at the moment. Both of them can have those moments where they get pressed and they just get the ball easily taken off of them. But you would imagine that Xhaka's experience would give him kind of like the leg up on Sambi in that position. And so what I also would expect is for us to bypass midfield quite a bit like we did with Elneny. But what you're missing is what Xhaka has been giving us in these games, which is some good movement up top. And can Sambi replicate that and get into the box and be a goal threat or at least get an assist or something? I'm not sure because I'm still not convinced that Sambi is intense enough. He's just kind of like there, you know what I mean? And he needs to influence the game in some way. If we lose Xhaka in those attacking positions, Sambi needs to make that up. And so this is what I anticipate seeing. This is what would feel right to me. I think once the game is won, maybe you could bring in Tommy for Ben, bring him out, keep the midfield maybe the same, maybe, bring in Nketiah for Jesus and then, see what that looks like. But this is kind of the lineup that I expect to see with potentially Saka starting because he just always starts. But you guys can let me know if you disagree or not. Phila says this team should comfortably beat Villa. We've said that before. It's all about their mentality and how they go out there. And if they have the mentality not to let a couple of injuries completely derail them. Ionle says Sambi would be good enough in the new Xhaka role for at least this game. Gary Barclay says, I hope this don't happen. Then what do you want to happen? John P says, I expect the same. Billy says, what I mean is in the 2-3-5 in possession. That is the three, Xhaka, Sambi, and White. Yeah, so Xhaka can drop in because Tierney is not really a midfielder. I mean, I think Tierney tried to replicate some of the things that Zinchenko did, kind of like pinching into midfield, receiving the ball in those positions. But I didn't feel comfortable with him there because obviously his passing is just not the same. So you're probably right that you can get Tierney in a more advanced role playing in those half spaces and trying to connect with ESR and have Xhaka dropping in. And then you get that midfield. So you're absolutely right. That makes so much sense now that you said it like that. Moo Wave says maybe Zinchenko will not be fit for this game. And hopefully, we'll have to use him against Manchester United. He has to be back. Anthony says Xhaka gets his armchair role at the base of the left half space and Sambi occupies that left 8 zone and first and second phases of play. X Distack says, Ainsley Maitland-Niles will have to be ready on the bench for this one. I don't think Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a better midfielder than Sambi. I wouldn't feel any more comfortable with him in midfield than I would with Sambi. He's not a good midfielder. He doesn't have the vision, or he doesn't have the swivel. He doesn't scan. He doesn't have a great passing range. Like, there's nothing that Ainsley Maitland-Niles can do that Sambi cannot. And so I don't know why. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, I think, needs to be like he's just not somebody that I feel like can play midfield for us. So I don't know why he would need to be ready on the bench because he wouldn't play for us. Saida says, no Arsenal fan would be impressed with Sambi if he was playing for a lower table team. He's nothing special. But if the club signed him, then there must be something about him. I think we signed him because well, let's be fair with Sambi. Sambi has not been great at Arsenal, but I don't think many players do well, especially young players that are not ready when we're under pressure and you're meant to come in. So like Nuno was playing well when we weren't under pressure, but as soon as we were under pressure playing against Liverpool, playing in situations where we didn't have a more stable starting 11, it all fell apart. Sambi's quite similar, but there were some games where he played quite well. And he's also somebody that at a very young age is, on the fringes of the Belgian national team, which is not an easy team to get in when you're thinking that it's Kevin De Bruyne, Tielemans, what's the other guy's name? Witzel, they have good midfielders. So I want to be fair with Sambi that I do think that he's talented. I just think he needs to impose himself on the game. He needs to move with a little bit more intention and intensity. The Premier League is so intense and you have so much less time that he can't just be jogging. And I just feel like I see somebody that's just kind of like, you just want to say, can you run a little bit faster? And that's what I'm just looking for, a little bit more than that. I think a loan would suit him really well. But if we don't loan him out, then hopefully he can show what his quality is in a game like this. If he's a good quality player, even young, he should be able to play against Aston Villa. The Truth Sets Free, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, can we all vote for Jess today? I know how to do it multiple times. Is that naughty? I won't tell you what to do, but you guys, the FCAs are still going on. You guys can copy and paste. I am voting for @SheKnowsArsenal in the FC whatever @the_FCAs for best new content creator. You can just copy and paste that and tweet that, and it counts as a vote. I really appreciate your guys' support if you guys feel like I'm worthy. So yeah, that's what he's basically talking about. Make sure you guys hit the likes. But yeah, it's just all about, if Sambi gets the opportunity, just show. That's it. Just show it. Billy says, just remember, Rodri also struggled in his first season. Fernandinho also not that great in his first season. I remember they signed Fernando to play DM. It's just, I do think that you make a good point with that it may have just been his first season and he needed to get acclimated to the league. I just want to see him. I want to be able to update my opinion on him, just like I did with Nketiah. As much as I didn't love Nketiah at first, and I didn't think he was good enough, as soon as I saw him playing in a way that felt like, okay, yeah, he's ready, I updated my information on him, and I'm fully down with Eddie Nketiah. I want to be like that with Sambi. And I was in a group chat, and I think one of the most important things, especially, I know that the fans at the stadium will do this, and maybe I haven't done enough of it today, and I'll do it more going forward, is that Sambi deserves the same love that Saliba got. We love Saliba so much that even though he made a mistake and did an own goal, we were just kind of like, whatever, like, it's fine. Like, we want to support him. We want to make sure he stays. Sambi is also somebody that the club bought that was young, maybe not ready yet, but we need to support him and give him the same Saliba love. And so maybe I haven't done enough of that today, but I want Sambi to do well. And I trust that the club have brought in a player that they feel like is good enough to play for Arsenal at some point. So he does deserve the same kind of, backing. And I don't think we give everybody the same because we just love Saliba so much. Saliba's on another level than Sambi, but I still feel like we should extend some of that, like, to Sambi. If he does play, he just needs people to be behind him, even if he makes a mistake. Yo-Yo says, Arteta trusts some players and distrusts others, and that heavily influence on the squad success. Fair enough. Basil says we should have identified the midfield problem earlier than gambling at the end of the window. Partey is inconsistent with injuries. Yeah, we kind of talked about that earlier. So now let's go ahead and get into our predictions. What do you guys think is going to happen? Who's going to be the scorers? Are we going to score? Let me know what you guys think. I want to get these predictions in, and then we can go ahead and watch football. It's football in like 30 minutes or so, which is amazing. Denver says, I think with Sambi, it's more of a confidence issue. When he was playing in Xhaka's absence, he looked okay with slight bits of brilliance. Hope he can come good now. Exactly. Ayan Ayanle says, breaking, Miguel Aziz is not in the under-21s team tonight. He will feature tomorrow. I don't think he's ready either. No more kids, but good for him. John P says 2-0. You guys go ahead and get your predictions in. Who are going to be the scorers? What do you think is going to happen? How do you think the game is going to go? Mikey says, Nketiah has that fire in him. He really does. Like, he's really changed my mind a lot. Jovi says 2-0, nail biter like Palace. Amira says 2-0. I don't know who, but one will definitely be from a set piece. Anthony says Eddie banging his first Premier League goal at Villa if he starts. Dr. Omizia says, by all means, we need to get a CDM and a right wing already. I think we'd get a 3-1 win. Jesus to score a brace. iGamer says Jesus and Saka, for the sake of my FPL, will score. Billy says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Joshua says Aziz, bruh, this Jan isn't it. Saida says I'm leaning towards a 2-1 or a 3-1. Craig says 4-0 Arsenal, Jesus 3, and Nketiah 1. That's ambitious. iGamer says 2-0. Elliot Roberts says 3-0 to the Arsenal. Jesus back on the score sheet. Basil says will be a difficult game, 2-2. Harry says 3-0, Jesus, Saka, and Nketiah. A. Nasango says 2-1 to the Arsenal, and Anthony says 2-0 to the Arsenal, Eddie and Jesus. I kind of think this game will go kind of like it did with Leicester, where we have a lot of the possession. We're looking really good. They're going to have some chances because they have some decent players. But ultimately, we'll grab hold of the game and we'll score, and then we'll score a couple of goals on them. I do think it'll be something like a 3-1. I think we'll give up one goal. And the only thing that would just annoy me is just we haven't had a lot of clean sheets. I don't think we have a clean sheet at home since March. I'd love to get a clean sheet, but I just feel like we're not going to get it for some reason. But I'm going to go with a 3-1. They're not great defensively. They're down. They have nothing to fight for, and they'll be at our place. And I think once we establish, how the game is going to go, they will follow suit and they will fall back. They do have some quality players that can hurt you. But as we saw when we played them at their place last season, is that if you get on top of them and you start beating them, they won't be able to do anything about it. They'll give up. They don't have a very strong mentality as a team. And they'll just let us have all the possession, and we should take advantage of it. I'm going to go, like I said, with a 3-1 win. I think we'll score one off of a set piece. I think we'll get a penalty, and I think Jesus will score at least one goal. That's my that's going to be my prediction. Finnegan says this Villa side is surprising. They can still win. Beginning of the game is important. I think that's why it's important to get start to dominate possession and make sure that they know that the game is going to go the way that we want it to go. Quite similar to Leicester. I feel like Leicester and Villa are quite similar, where they have good players that can hurt you, but they're weak mentally and they're bad at the back. So if we can just make sure that we score our goals, it won't really matter. I think they will fold. Mazzino says Chelsea about to spend another 90 million. I can't imagine how the market will look in a couple of years. The Truth Sets Free says Jesus looked frustrated last game. He needs a goal. I want him to look frustrated. I don't want a player that looks like they're okay with not scoring. It's been a couple of games since he scored a goal, but he had an assist against Bournemouth. So yeah, he's due a goal. And he got fouled every single time he touched the ball against Fulham. So hopefully, he'll be able to be a bigger part of the game this time around. But I would imagine he's frustrated, especially because Tite was there, and he wanted to be able to show that he's grown ahead of the World Cup. So I can understand why he'd be frustrated. So yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and letting me rant and do my thing. You guys always put me back into my center, and I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better now. I do think we're going to beat Aston Villa. I think we'll play well. It's just a matter of making sure we don't get any more injuries, rotating properly, taking care of business, and getting into the weekend feeling like we can win away from home at Old Trafford. First big clash has to go well. Have to make sure that we get something out of that game. And a lot of what we do in tomorrow's game, I think, will affect that. But we'll see what also happens in the transfer window. Adu needs to get things done. I think we bring in one player. I don't think we'll get everything done, and I think that player will be a winger, which is unfortunate. And they'll just hope that Thomas Partey and Elneny come back quick enough where it doesn't affect our season too much. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Tomorrow, well, obviously, like tomorrow, I'll do my hits and misses. You guys will get a pre-recorded, hits and misses at some point tomorrow after the game, and then we'll do a live show, and then the deadline day stream. I'm not going to be doing it on here. I'll be on the Football Terrace doing their deadline stream. But anything that happens, you guys know you'll get an update from me in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, iGamer, I will be releasing the scalp now. It's very like this bun is hurting. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Really enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, guys.